Alright guys, today we are going to do a engine build-up on what I hope is the most powerful Vortec 4200 that we have ever built. We received this engine from a man named Jeff, and you heard me talk about it in our intro video on the car that you see next to me, which is a 2010 Camaro SS that we are trying to build an American Supra with. To give you a brief overview of the project, we are trying to do a turbo inline-six powered American muscle car to sort of emulate the styling of the Mark IV Toyota Supra. Now, Jeff requested that I tear this engine apart to sort of just look over things. He's been running it for a little while in his 1969 Camaro, and he wants us to just sort of see how things are wearing in, check out the bearings, check out the piston skirts, you know, that sort of things. Being that these engines get the rod rolled over pretty hard, they are more prone to having piston skirt issues, so we need to make sure that everything is good before we try to make big horsepower. So without further ado, let's roll into some shots where we tore this thing apart and had a look at how everything was getting along with one another. I was pretty excited to get this engine tore apart just because I know a good amount of care and detail has been invested in this thing. As you can see, it has a main girdle, which if you followed one of our previous videos, you know that we are attempting to build something similar to this, and it was very much inspired by this main girdle. One of the goals of this teardown was to just see what the condition of the bearings were, being that Jeff had run this engine in the past. The mains looked like some stuff had gone through them, but it wasn't too bad. Next, I want to show you an upgrade that we are doing on this engine while it is apart. If you guys are familiar with the 4200, you'll know that they have a 180-degree thrust bearing. But GM was nice enough to make the thrust bearing able to fit onto the main cap perfectly, and everything is machined with enough precision that you can just slot it right onto the cap and do a 360-degree thrust upgrade. You do lose a little bit of bearing surface on the bottom cap, but I think having a 360-degree thrust makes that worth it. Alright guys, we just wrapped up our modifications to the bottom end. So we took the stud girdle off of the engine and we installed the factory main girdle. Once again, this is actually the main girdle that was on my Studebaker, so a little bit of sentimental value right there, but I just wanted to go over what we have here. We can see that it is a factory crankshaft that somebody has spent a lot of time grinding on. I don't know what exactly the intent here was. It probably is, you know, in order to help shed oil off of the crankshaft, if I had to guess. So somebody spent a whole lot of time on that. Additionally, we have a set of Molnar connecting rods and some diamond pistons. Those all look to be in real good shape. We also noticed that the main bearings appeared to have some sort of coating on them. Also up here in the front there was the addition of a manual timing chain tensioner. We've never had an issue with the factory one, and we will be converting it back to a factory piece just because we don't really see the need for the manual timing chain tensioner. The hydraulic one will deal with chain stretch in a more effective manner, and there's just really no need for that in my opinion. Along with the main girdle conversion, we also installed a set of ARP main studs. Now you're going to notice these are spec'd out for a BMW. They're actually a head stud for a BMW 1.6 liter, and we installed those for our main studs. The only thing that you have to be careful of is they are just barely too short with the supplied washer with the ARP kit. So we actually used the factory washer from the 4.2 main bolts We just had to drill it out for the 10mm stud size because it is slightly undersized. Next, it was time to start popping rods and pistons out of the engine so that we could see how those bearings were doing and check the ring gap out. I was kind of blown away with the quality of parts in this department, so let's show them off. First off, I wanted to show you guys off these really fancy looking pistons. You can see that the upper ringland of the piston has been extended quite a bit, so much so that the oil control rings have gotten into the pin and they require a support rail. So this is a really good sign for a turbo piston because, you know, it's nice to have a little bit more ringland just to be able to withstand all that extra heat. Additionally, I noticed there's this nice Teflon coating on the outside of the piston that's helped to help reduce wear. And you can see that the skirts of the piston both look pretty fantastic. Also, I noticed that the top ring is a total seal ring. So there's actually two rings in there. There's like a thick ring that sort of has a step to it, and then the smaller ring sort of goes into that little step. And the idea with that is it keeps the ring totally sealed and makes a 360-degree seal around the top of the piston. So another reason that I'm glad we tore this apart is we found out that the top ring only had 21 thousandths of ring gap. We've run a small gap on these engines before, but being we want to push this engine pretty hard, I want to open that up some, so we're going to go right to 30 thousandths of ring gap. So I'm going to get to work on that, and let's get this thing tore apart and put back together. I've never actually talked about this on these engines, but this is how you actually time the engine. Now you're going to notice that every 7 links on the timing chain, there is a different colored link. Sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's black, like what's on this one. And you have a timing mark here on the crankshaft sprocket. Then when you move up to your camshaft sprockets, they also have a timing mark on the top. Now, if you are timing it up normally, you would want this mark to be 1 tooth to the left here. But I'm actually advancing the exhaust camshaft because I want to keep the pistons away from the valves in case the variable valve timing was to go to the maximum retarded position. The intake, on the other hand, is installed in the normal position. So this is what your correctly timed position would normally look like. Now, your timing chain tensioner is pretty simple. It has this little lever here. You basically pull this lever, and then this has sort of a ratcheting mechanism. So you would pull this lever, and then you're able to collapse the timing chain tensioner. And most of the time you will have to do that in order to get your little shoe here to be able to give you enough slack up here at the top to get everything lined up and actually be able to correctly time the engine. Then when the engine gets pressurized with oil, this will push out and put tension onto the timing chain, and you should be good to go. Alright guys, we got the engine dropped into the Camaro, and I am now working on finishing up the custom intake that I have been making for this car. And I wanted to take a moment and stop and talk about the injectors that we plan to run. Now, we've been running Snake Eater performance injectors for quite a few years. We've installed them on probably like 7 or 8 projects, and we've had fantastic success with them. Snake Eater Performance was sort of started as a affordable alternative to high-flow fuel injectors, and they started off with a Chinese-made injector, but recently they discontinued their Chinese injector line, and they've gone to either American-made or German-made injectors for all of their products. And this is our first time that we're going to get to run what they are now calling their Pro Series of fuel injector. Now, what's also cool is that I've actually worked with the owner of Snake Eater Performance, and we have developed this drop-in fuel injector for the Atlas series engines. The Atlas engines have a bit of a challenge in that the injector plug is very high on the injector body, and the injector is pretty long. It is not similar to any other injector that I have been able to find, but we have made the Deca style injectors work in the past, but this one should work even better. as far as a drop-in goes. It is a Bosch injector with an extended nose that we put the spacer on the bottom, actually, to get the injector plug here up and in a spot where it won't foul with the cylinder head. So we are going to run these for our primaries. Unfortunately, the largest that you can get for these is an 1100cc injector, which is good for about 700 wheel horsepower with ethanol. So we will need a bit more, hence the second row of injectors. And for those, we will be running these guys, which are a set of their 1500 LS1 style injector. And one of the nice things is we will be running a Holley Dominator, so we can run all 12 of these sequentially. Normally with a 2-stage injection setup like this, you would have to run 1 stage in batch and 1 stage sequentially. But with this, we can really make this thing high tech. So let's get these dropped in and see how they fit. Guys, I have another thing that I want to plug in this video, and that is these little things right here. In the past, we have run IGN 1A coils on these engines, and I am looking for something a little bit different. The IGN 1A coils are great for motorsport use, but we have found them to be a little bit unreliable when you're driving on the street. Especially in a case where it can't like get stuff lit off, it'll actually like melt down internally. And we've been looking for another coil that will work for our particular application for a little while now. So one of the things that I love about more and more people getting into this platform is you're getting more and more people involved that have more experience with a lot of different engines. And somebody posted on the Facebook page this ignition coil right here. This is an NGK U5002 ignition coil, and it is spec'd out for a Volkswagen or Audi. And people have found that this ignition coil will support up to 300 horsepower per cylinder. What the guy that posted on the 4200 page found was that these ignition coils actually fit the 4200 almost perfectly, and he has come out with a kit here to help to adapt the NGK Volkswagen coil to the Vortec 4200. So if you guys are interested in a setup like this, go over to Can Formance Engineering, and I will have links in the description. And I'm really excited to see how these ignition coils perform, but you'll have to wait until later videos to see how that works out. As you can see, we've gotten quite a bit of work done off camera, and we'll probably circle back to some of that work in more detail in later videos. But we have been sort of thrashing to get this car ready for Six Summer, which is coming up in 2 months. With the theft of my truck and the trailer, we are definitely set back a little bit. And that's definitely going to cause us to have to spend a little bit of time away from this project. So we're definitely going to be down to the wire. I want to say a big thanks to everybody out there that has been following that whole deal and looking out for my stuff. At this point, I have no updates. We are filming this about a week in advance of the date that this video will go out. But right now, we have no updates, and that's a little bit discouraging. But I want to say a huge thanks to everybody that has tried to help. We'll see if the things show back up. So with that, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.